guys, it's Finn. With just a couple of weeks left to go of Movember, I thought I would check in and let you know how it's all going. As you can see, considering it's the 20th of November, there isn't much tash to write home about. But never mind. And also, I've cheated a little bit because I still have some facial hair going on. But I've had some extreme issues with razor burn, so I've had to kind of leave it in between. So in terms of actually growing a tash and shaving the rest of the facial hair, it's not been that successful, to be honest, so far, and I doubt in the remaining 10 days that it's going to be that much more successful. But my mission for doing this, for growing this mo, was primarily to raise awareness of mental health issues. For those that have seen my previous video, my idea was, as part of Movember and also as part of Time to Change, I wanted to use the tash, or lack of, to speak about mental health. So on a daily basis, or it's panned out every few days, I've been updating a picture of my mo and doing a little bit about how I'm feeling on that day, just in the hope of starting conversations, and that bit has been very successful actually. I've had some really lovely comments with people relating to the sort of things I was sharing, and I've had some amazing emails from people really sharing their story with me as well, so it's definitely working, so that is very, very reassuring. But I thought at this point in the month it would be very, very important to have a very, very important conversation about something that I feel very passionately about. And that is the issue of transgender people and mental health. And this is especially important today, as today is Transgender Day of Remembrance, and it's a day where across the world the transgender folk who have lost their lives, needlessly lost their lives, through murder or suicide, are remembered across the world. So I thought it was really important to do this video today, especially talking about mental health problems, because looking at the statistics, the facts out there, it's shown that 41% of people, of transgender people, are more likely to commit suicide, of attempted suicide at some point in their life. And this is nearly 9 times the national average. That's absolutely shocking. Absolutely shocking. 41% of transgender people are attempting suicide. I think this is really for a number of reasons. I mean, although being transgender isn't in itself a mental health diagnosis, it does of course have lots of coexisting mental health problems alongside. You know, if I look at my own story, I mean, it was definitely the case for me. I didn't know what the issue was. All I knew was that I didn't feel right, I felt odds with myself, in my body and what have you. Because I didn't know what was going on, I chose to numb it. I had severe depression and anxiety, so I numbed that with alcohol, with drugs, with self-harm, and various suicide attempts myself. So, yes, it's not that being transgender is a mental health issue, but of course the process of trying to hide it, or trying to understand it, or trying to deal with it over the years does lead to, alongside mental health problems. And then even when the problem is actually recognised, the issue then is getting the treatment. And this is something that I feel very, very strongly about, and I think it's something that's causing a lot of issues out there with suicide, self-harm, alcohol and drug addiction, is the waiting period. And when a person presents at their their GP, should I say, and asks for a referral. Although the system now has been changed that you don't need to go and see a mental health professional first, you can get a referral straight from your GP to a gender identity clinic, this information isn't being funneled down to doctors successfully. So a lot of doctors do not realise this is happening. So one of two things are happening. Either a doctor is so confused they just don't know what to do, and the trans person stays in the system for ages until it's actioned, or that trans person still gets referred to a psychiatrist, and then the psychiatrist is misinformed and thinks that they have to kind of diagnose before sending on. And all of this really holds up a trans person's treatment and is so very dangerous. It was 15 months for me from presenting to my doctor and to starting hormones, and my journey was pretty straightforward. I knew what I was asking for, so I went to my doctor. At that time you did have to see a mental health professional, so I was referred to the mental health team. That was a 3-month wait. Then I was referred from the mental health service to the gender identity clinic. 15 months in total. But that is a lot longer for a lot of people. Even now, when you can straight refer, it's still too long waiting from presentation as having gender dysphoria to actually getting some treatment. And in that period of time, as I experienced myself, mental health gets worse, suicide can happen, especially if you're trying to live as transgender out in the world while still looking and sounding the opposite gender to what you're trying to present. That's just a big ask. Okay, everyone needs a little period of time enrolled to make sure it's right, but 15 months and longer than that is just too much to ask, especially when there's no support in the meantime. And I think this is leading to a lot of suicide attempts. And then you have the issue that, of course, when you do get to a gender identity clinic, the problems aren't solved overnight. Yes, of course, you know, speaking from a personal point here, when I knew that what my issue was that I was transgender, when I knew I could start hormones and actually have my body match how I felt, absolutely wonderful, amazing feeling, and it certainly was the cure as such for me and for everybody else. However, it doesn't mean that when you then start those treatments that all the other problems are going to go away overnight. You know, for me, I had 40 years of learning very bad coping techniques, of being very depressed, very suicidal, not knowing how to be in the world and all of that. So yes, going on hormones, starting transition, having the surgeries is the cure for my being transgender and such. But at the same time, it's not going to magic all those other problems away. So, you know, transition is one thing, but alongside it is mental health that needs constant support in order for you to recover. And anyway, on top of all this, you've got the extra mental stress of actually transitioning. When you've been socialised as one gender, and then you have to learn how to live, even, you know, I've had the manliest of traits, but suddenly, in a man's world, there's lots of subtle things that you need to learn to do. And just living a different life and settling into that is really, really hard. And of course you're going to have mental health problems on top of that, you know, the social anxiety and what have you. And you've got stigma and discrimination still. LGB are further forward than the T are, for sure. There is still a lot of work to be done around stigma and discrimination, especially in the workplace. And I think the big issue here is trans people just aren't reaching out, and the message isn't going out there that these problems are existing. It's out there, but it's not explicit, I don't think. And I think that this is for a couple of reasons. I think there is a general feeling in the trans community that if you go to a gender identity clinic and you disclose some mental health problems, that might actually slow your treatment or stop your treatment altogether. And so a lot of people aren't disclosing, and this is so incredibly dangerous, because if you don't disclose, of course you can't be given the right support. And I think on top of this, it's the kind of pressure to conform. Men don't really talk openly about their feelings and about mental health problems. It's well documented that mental health in men is far different than in women in terms of how it's communicated. And I think this is the same for trans people, because trans men especially, and me included in this, you don't want to kind of admit to female feelings, especially in the early days. You know, you're so desperate to be seen as male that the last thing you want to do is say I want to cry or I feel sad or all of this. You know, you kind of end up often getting affected by the man up, a stiff upper lip thing that's going on out there, and it can be very, very hard as trans men to admit to problems for fear of being seen as weak in some way, and I think that is definitely going on there. So it is no wonder that there are so many mental health problems around the issue of being transgender. And I think, you know, what's needed to be done about this is we just need to be talking really openly and honestly. We need trans people to come forward and say, I have problems, and we need to get rid of this myth that if you disclose a mental health problem in a clinic that you're going to be refused treatment, because it absolutely isn't the case. If anything, if you don't disclose, you're likely to have your treatment slowed, because it's quite obvious. Therapists know when there's an issue, and if you're trying to disclose rather than be honest, that's not helpful. Actually, a person that's very able and self-aware will be the one that goes, yes, I've got these problems and I'm doing X, Y, Z to get better, to support myself, all of these things. That's what a gender identity clinic wants to see, that you're proactive in looking after your mental health. They don't want you to be perfect human beings. It's well known that if you're transgender, the likelihood is you're going to have a mental health problem. If you haven't, you're one of the rare few. So don't be afraid to turn up to a clinic and say, I have these issues as well. Because if you say that, they can then support you while still carrying on with your treatment. So share that amongst this trans community, that you must disclose. And also, let's get the message out there to mental health services everywhere that you do not have to be a trans specialist service to support trans people. I've heard so often stories of trans guys out there who are in the mental health system, and then they're referred to a gender identity clinic, and then they're discharged from their local mental health team, because the mental health team holds the view that the gender identity clinic will sort it out. Being transgender isn't a mental health problem. You go to a gender identity clinic so they can sort out your treatment and support you through it, but there are mental health issues that are alongside that might be something to do with trans, might not. But discharging a person from the service is so absolutely dangerous. If anything, once you've got that referral in place and you're waiting, as I said earlier, you need that more than ever to be supported in that period of time. So we need to get the message out there that whether you're a trans-specific health service or not, anybody provides support, because it's not rocket science. It's just things like somewhere to go that's safe and supportive, somewhere to talk about how it is being different in the world, and just someone to offload to. You don't have to be a trans specialist, and that GPs don't then just say, oh, you're being referred, that's it, end of it, it's fine, we'll just wait for that to happen, because it could be a year and a half, 2 years before you're seeing someone, worst case scenario. So yeah, more joined up services need to happen as well, so that they can coexist alongside your gender treatment. You can still have mental health treatment. So yeah, I really wanted to just do this video just to really stress that mental health affects everybody, whether you're male, female, cis, trans, it affects everybody. And we all just need to reach out, and I especially say to the trans folk today on Transgender Day of Remembrance to reach out, speak out against discrimination, speak out for better services, reach out to fellow trans folk, because reaching out, it might end up saving a life, and sharing a problem helps you and it helps everybody else. You know, we need to show that it's okay to talk, that it's okay to share this, that it doesn't make you weak, it doesn't make you any less male, it doesn't mean you can't have treatment. We all need to speak out. I've put some links at the very bottom of this. Please do check them out. There's some really, really good information out there. It's quite harrowing actually to read some of the statistics about mental health problems in the trans community and suicide. But please do read them, and then please just share and spread the word and do whatever you can. Donate to any of the amazing charities out there, whether it's for men's mental health in general or trans mental health. Please do reach out and just do what you can to help prevent this, because it's unnecessary at this day and age that many trans people are still attempting suicide. So yes, that's it from me, and I will speak soon. Take good care of yourselves. Bye bye.